Miss Wrangles people. Alright, so this video is over summarizing data, and these are your guided notes. Okay, so the first thing in your notes, it should say use statistics to summarize data. So we are going to calculate the mean, the median, range, and interquartile range of a given set of data. So that's our first target. The second target is that we are going to compare data sets with the same measures of center, but different measures of spread. So we have to look over what is the measure of center and what are measures of spread. So we have 4 vocabulary words that are in this section. So it says measure of center is the mean, median, and mode. Mode is what occurs the most, so what happens the most. Your measure of spread, this is talking about range and interquartile range. So spread is how far apart things are. And then measure of center is the most common measure. So mean, median, mode. And then for measure of spread, it's the range, the variance, or the interquartile range. And then statistics. This is the study of collecting, summarizing, and presenting numerical data. So statistics is the study of collecting, summarizing, and presenting numerical data. And then the last one is variability. And variability is a degree to which something can vary or change. So for me, variability, I just remember word varies, it changes. Okay. And then we have to go over how to find interquartile range. So the question here, it says, last week's quiz scores were 84%, 92%, 76%, 100%, 50%, 95%, and 89%. What was the interquartile range for the quiz score? So the very first thing to find interquartile range is we have to put those numbers in order from least to greatest. So you have 50, 76, 84, 89, 92, 95, and 100. And so what you want to do is you always want to make sure that we have not left off any of these numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we should have 7 numbers on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have to figure out what is our median, the middle number. So here, 89 is in the middle. Then it says, so that represents our median. Then we have to figure out our lower quartile. So since 89 is in the middle, we are not going to count that to find the bottom half. So here is our bottom half, 50, 76, and 84. So our lower quartile is this number in the middle, which is 76. So let's check it. So we have 76. And then you do the same thing for the top. So you have 92, 95, and 100. And our middle number is 95. Okay, so now we have all the numbers that we need to figure out what is our interquartile range, or our IQR. So let's double check. Our upper quartile is 95. And to find interquartile range, you subtract your upper quartile and your lower quartile. And we got 19. Okay, if that does not make sense, like your interquartile range, you're having trouble figuring out, there is a video on my website, or that you can message me and I can send you the video to figure out and practice how to find interquartile range. Okay, so here now we have to find the mean, median, range, and interquartile range. So same thing I said earlier. If you cannot find mean, median, range, and interquartile range, you need to watch those previous videos, because in this section, you need to be able to figure out mean, median, range, and interquartile range. Okay. All right, so on here, it says the data set in numerical order. So they gave you a list of numbers, and the very first thing you want to do is put those in numerical order. So from least to greatest. So 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then 13. And same thing, you want to make sure we haven't left out any numbers. So we look back on our original list. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there should be 6 numbers when we put them in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? And then now we need to find the mean. So remember, the mean is when you add all the numbers up and then you divide by how many numbers you added. Okay? So here they've added all the numbers up for us, which is 42. Since we added all the numbers, then we divide by 6, because that's how many numbers we added. And we have a mean here of 7. Okay? And then your median, it says the average of 6 and 8. So I want to show you how they got 6 and 8. So you have to mark off your numbers until you are in the middle. So we have 6 and 8. When we add those together, divide by 2, we get 7. Because what's in between 6 and 8? We get 7. Okay? So our median here is 7. All right, the next thing we have to figure out is our range. So remember, range is the largest number minus the smallest number. So 13 minus 1. And we get a range of 12. Okay? The next one, it wants us to figure out our lower and upper quartile, because we're going to need that in order to figure out what is our interquartile range. So I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these pencil marks, because we already know that 7 is our median. It's that number in the middle. It's splitting our data in half. So now our lower quartile, we have 1, 4, and 6. We figured out that 4 is in the middle. And since I already have my pencil out, we're going to figure out what is our upper quartile. So you have 8, 10, and 13. Our upper quartile is 10. And let's just double check to make sure that's what we have. So lower quartile was 4. Upper quartile was 10. And then to find your interquartile range, you are subtracting your upper and your lower quartile. So if you are having trouble, remember, with mean, median, range, or interquartile range, you need to find those previous videos and watch them, or you can message me on Schoology. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and move forward. So here we're talking about statistics. The mean, median, range, and interquartile range are all different examples of statistics. So each of them are telling us something useful about the data. So there are 2 ways to measure center. So you have mean, and you also have your median. The next one is the measure of spread. So when I think of spread, I think of butter, how it's from least to greatest, from one side of the toast to the other. So you have interquartile range, and you also have range. Okay, so remember, measure of center is talking about the mean and median, the center of the data. Measure of spread is how far apart is that data from the least to greatest. Okay? All right, so now it has variability. Well, variability and spread is the same thing, just different words. So you have variability occurs when data sets range widely from one end to the other. So we're talking about the spread. All right, so here we're trying to figure out our range. So we have to figure out what is behind this number. So how we find range is from the largest to the smallest. So 28 is our largest number, and 22 is our smallest number. So behind this box, we should have 28, and this here has a range of 6. Then here, same thing, we have to find our range. So the largest number is 60, and then the smallest number is 0. So 60 minus 0, we get 60. And then now we have to compare which one has a greater variability. So which one has a larger range, a longer spread. So it says the data set on the right has a greater variability. And the reason why is because the range or the variability to the right was 60. And 60 is a lot larger than 6. So the one on the right has a greater variability. Okay, now so we have variability talking about range. Now we're going to talk about the interquartile range. Okay, so if we look here, we have a range for the first one to be 40. And the range for the right one is also 40. So it says both data sets have the same range because the range is both 40. So we want to figure out more about this variability. So we're going to look at our interquartile range. So with interquartile range, remember the first thing we have to do is put those numbers in order from least to greatest. And then we have to figure out our middle number. So our middle number here, I believe, is 35. Okay. Then we want to find our lower quartile. So we're looking here on this bottom part, and we've noticed that 22 is in the middle. And we do the same thing to the right side, and we figured out 39 is in the middle. So underneath this box, we have 22. And so the interquartile range is 17. Okay, for the same thing here, we want to figure out what is our interquartile range. So you have to figure out what number is in the middle. So we notice that 53 is in the middle, so you're marking off a high and a low until you get to the middle. Then we figured out that our lower quartile is 42, and our upper quartile is 71. And to find interquartile range, you're going to subtract those two numbers. And here we have 29. So now we're going to ask the question, which one has a greater variability? So the one to the right has a greater variability because we have 29 for our interquartile range. And over here, we only have 17 for our interquartile range. So the greater the range, the greater the variability. Okay, and so these last two slides are going to ask a lot of information. So it says data sets can have the same measure of center, but different measures of spread. And so here they give us a dot plot or a line plot. Remember, those two are the same thing. Line plot and dot plot are the same. And so with this, they want you to figure out your mean, your range, your median, and also your interquartile range. What I recommend is that you are going to list out the numbers because sometimes it's a little difficult to just look at a graph and figure out what your mean, range, and so on is. So underneath this box, we went ahead and I put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So we have them here. And then remember, so the first thing it wants you to find is your mean. So they got 84 from adding all of those numbers up, and they are going to divide by 14 because there's a total of 14 numbers. Okay. And then for your median, you have to find your middle number. So your middle number here is, okay, so our middle number here is in between these two sixes. Oops, right here. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there should be 7 numbers also to the right. So our median is 6 because what's between 6 and 6? 6. Okay, the next thing they did is they figured out the range. They know that the largest number is 8 and the smallest number is 3. So they went ahead and subtracted and got 5. Then to figure out your interquartile range, we have to figure out what is our lower quartile. So our lower quartile here is 5 because that's the middle number on the lower half. And then we want to find the upper quartile, which is 7. And they went ahead and they subtracted it and got 2 down here. So remember, it's really important to figure out, your mean, your median, range, and interquartile range for this section. Okay, this is your last slide. Okay, so same thing. They gave you a dot plot here, but it has X's. Same thing. You're going to put your numbers in order from least to greatest. which is there. And then you're going to find your mean. So remember, the mean is you add all those numbers up, then you divide by how many numbers you've added. So they have 78 divided by 13, and they now have a mean score of 6. Okay, the next one is your median, and they figured out that the median is 7, because it's the middle number. Then they also figured out the range. So the range is the largest number minus the smallest number. Okay, and then your interquartile range, let's see if we have this here.